Hey guys, it's Tristan Ogilvy here alongside the one and only Cam Shea. We're here to talk about The Last Guardian because guess what?
This just in!
We've only just gone and played it. It's a real game. It wasn't a trailer that someone just screened while we just held a controller that wasn't plugged in.
Almost 10 years in, the first meaty hands-on for this game.
Yeah.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
and it was so exciting.
Yeah, it was. So we played the first 45 minutes of the game, which is quite a nice chunk from the very opening of the game. And
Which we don't have footage of.
Sorry. Actually, we need to stress
Yeah.
that. Unfortunately, we weren't able to capture. We don't have footage of it. We do have some footage of the game, but it won't necessarily be related to what we're saying. But we're going to tell you about it anyway because it was a really awesome experience.
Yep.
So we're going to break it down to sort of 5 really cool, really interesting features from our hands-on, starting with Trico.
Obviously.
Because as the boy, you wake up at the very start of the game in this cave. There's this wounded animal in front of you, Trico, and I don't know about you, Cam, but it was instant that I sort of felt empathy for the beast, which I wouldn't, if it was a wounded human, probably wouldn't have
Go to
cared.
hell.
I see dead people in games all the time, but animals, there's something about a wounded animal, especially one as believable as this, even though it's a completely mythical beast, but believable in the way it sort of exists.
You approach it and it's kind of whimpering and it snaps at you if you get too close.
That's right, yeah.
It's got spears jutting out from its back.
Yeah.
So kind of like battle armor that's all dinged up on its head and back.
And you're in a cave, you're stuck in there with this animal. You can't just leave it. So you're kind of forced to sort of, care about it, I guess, by feeding it barrels of
stuff.
Purple goop.
And by pulling the spears out of its back.
You sort of earn its trust by feeding it, or at least you cause it to sort of relax a bit by feeding it, and then it allows you to sort of climb up, Shadow of the Colossus style, and pull the spears out. And then your buds.
Yeah, it was a cool sequence to play because this is just all about building the trust and starting to understand each other, starting to be able to call Trico.
Yes.
It's such a cool moment when it can stand up to its full height for the first time and scratch behind its ear and maybe nuzzle up to you.
Well, that leads into our next point is sort of quality of the animations and just
amazing.
how sort of believable Trico is and how puppy, feathery bird like he is. And that's, that completely sells it. The quality of the animation is really what, sells.
And it's in no way surprising coming from Ueda and his team. I mean, his background is as an animator.
Yeah.
He's very particular about details, and they've been working on this game for a really long time.
Yeah.
So obviously that's been one of the, because Trico is the centerpiece of the game. So getting it right is incredibly important. Ueda said to us when we were over there that it's only been the last few months he's felt that Trico has come together as a believable entity, and so much of that is to do with the animation. I mean, it's obviously to do with the balance between kind of free will and also being kind of reliable and just this, because Trico's independent but he's kind of not, and it's this interesting combination of elements.
Yeah.
And you never really know what to expect, and that's the beauty of it. You call him into the room, and he dashes in like a puppy dog.
Yeah.
Like I was saying to you before, that I tried to show him how to jump into this underground lake, but he kind of shook me off his head, and I fell, and he caught me in his beak.
Yeah.
This emergent moment that was so cool, and then he dropped me in the lake anyway. It's
prankster.
The believability of Trico and the quality of the animations is just superb, and it's not just Trico either. I think the boy is animated so well as well.
Yeah.
So just the presentation as a whole is, it's pretty peerless, really.
Yeah, and it all has that just handcrafted feel.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about not just the characters, obviously they're kind of the main focus, but the characters in the world, and because as we mentioned, you start out in a very sort of confined space. I mean, it's still big enough to fit a giant bus-sized beast, but eventually you sort of get out of there and you move into this sort of underground cavern with this giant lake and eventually the ruins and what have you. So it's very, I guess from small things, big things grow, but you learn to sort of rely on Trico to sort of, scale things that you wouldn't be able to otherwise as the boy, and therein lies the kind of core gameplay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's this real incredible sense of scale with the boy in relation to Trico, and Trico enables the boy to get to things that he couldn't otherwise, and then you go out into the ruins, and you're completely dwarfed by the ruins, and so there's this sense of scale of like you as a duo in this like unknowable kind of mythical place.
Yeah.
So the sense of scale like works on multiple levels, and it's really clever the way the game does that.
Yeah.
And particularly with the opening sequence, the way it just kind of it gives you this really quantifiable scale between you and Trico, and then expands out from
Yeah,
there.
it just gets bigger and bigger. In fact, the end of the demo, you're sort of staring up at this monstrous tower.
Yep.
So yeah.
And at that point, you're just like, I'm so glad I've got this beast by my side.
That's right.
Because what the hell is
Yeah,
this
I'm not
place?
taking the stairs. We have to talk about this, one of the, well, easily the biggest surprise during the first 45 minutes of the game. Something we did not see coming at all, something that hasn't even been hinted at
Yep.
over the past decade.
I was just so shocked. I didn't know how to feel.
So very early on, you find in this tomb this mirrored shield, which you can use to sort of reflect light into a sort of a very sort of concentrated beam, which you then use to sort of paint targets to lure Trico and his incredibly powerful weaponized laser beam tail to blast things for you.
Yeah. It's like Palpatine style, like
It was like
electricity like attack.
Yeah. So yeah, and so like you're stuck in a cave and you don't know how to get out. There's sort of some cracks in the wall. You whistle for Trico, aim the beam, and boom, it just blows you, the way out of there. So yeah, that was a complete surprise.
Yeah. But
yeah.
the point of the mirror being in there is to illustrate the power of Trico.
Yeah.
And to give you this idea that maybe it's the wielder of the mirror who holds power
Who's the
over
master.
Trico and
Yeah.
who makes him a beast of war.
Yeah.
So it gives you a bit more of a picture into, okay, because you knew he had the battle armor and the spears and stuff, but you don't really know what that's about, because that's very much at odds with your interactions with him up until that point. But then you realize that you've got this tool that he unquestioningly has to obey. And so it's kind of makes you feel a bit uneasy, and I think in that sense it serves its purpose really well. And I think they'll probably take it away from you pretty soon, because it doesn't feel like a vital gameplay element. I mean, you use it several times in the opening sequence, but I think that's just it's broad functionality. But I think it's there for story reasons primarily.
And that would make sense because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
That it's like, where do you go from there?
Yeah, I don't see it factoring into combat or anything like that. I mean, again, like Ueda's kind of said that the combat in the game is really to highlight, Trico's abilities. It's not integral to the gameplay itself.
And on the topic of Ueda-san, we have to just sort of sum up by saying that this is clearly a Ueda-san joint.
Yep.
Anyone who's played Ico or Shadow of the Colossus, I mean, it's very much in the exact same vein. It's kind of a mega mix of the two, as a smushing together of the
very,
two.
very familiar visual aesthetic.
Absolutely.
And kind of tone, and then like a bit of a mashup of the companionship from both those games, and then the use of scale and climbing these beasts, and it just brings together everything he's done before into a completely fresh package.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like it will be worth the admittedly lengthy wait.
Yep.
But you don't have to wait to learn more about the game. We've got all kinds of content on the site. We've got previews and video interviews with Ueda-san on the site right now, so check them out. Thank you very much, Cam.
Cheers, Tristan.
For all things Last Guardian. There's plenty on there now, and there's more to come right here on IGN.
Bye.